that me, I'm always going to be one of those people who are going to talk about things that need to be talked about. A lot of people won't do it, but I'll do it. I want to bring about a topic, domestic abuse, because myself, I am a survivor. My husband used to beat me a lot, and I survived an attack. But then I met my second husband, and it didn't work out either. He was kind of abusive, but he wasn't abusive to me. He was just, it's hard to explain. I've been through so much abuse with men that I almost swore them off completely because of the way that I was raised. I want everybody to know that my family didn't always have the picture-perfect life. We did have our ups and downs, and my parents did end up getting divorced. But I wanted to bring this up because recently Ren did a song with Token, and it's called What Does Your Love Look Like? And your love can be shaped from the time you're a small child until now. It can affect you in every way possible. Most of these abusers that get to become abusive have seen and witnessed abuse. It's a cycle. But once they get abused, they've never been abused before because they usually go after people that never had this kind of stuff happen to them. And it's a trap. There's different stages to abuse. But there was this lady that I went and seen in a seminar once, and I read her book, and it was amazing. And I wanted to play this for you guys, domestic abuse survivors and people going through domestic abuse right now, so that you guys can hear what can happen and how it happens. And I have a very similar story to what she's talking about because my husband was beating me before we got married. This is my first time getting married. And I didn't know that I was being abused. It usually happens between the ages of 20 and 24, somewhere around that. That's the age bracket that mostly starts. The U.S. statistics on it are very, very big. I would like to read a couple of them to y'all at the end of this, but I want you to hear what Kristen said. And this is an inspirational story for me. Let's be aware, people, because 70% of people who die from domestic abuse die after they leave the relationship. Fun fact. Let's hear what she has to say. I guarantee you when she starts speaking, this story will inspire anybody, male, female, because there is an increase in male abuse, I think like 17% since the pandemic started. So we're going to play this message from her. Thank you.
I'm here today to talk about a disturbing question, which has an equally disturbing answer. My topic is the secrets of domestic violence. And the question I'm going to tackle is the one question everyone always asks. Why does she stay? Why would anyone stay with a man who beats her? I'm not a psychiatrist, a social worker, or an expert in domestic violence. I'm just one woman with a story to tell. I was 22. I had just graduated from Harvard College. I'd moved to New York City for my first job as a writer and editor at 17 magazine. I had my first apartment, my first little green American Express card, and I had a very big secret. My secret was that I had this gun loaded with hollow point bullets pointed at my head by the man who I thought was my soulmate many, many times. The man who I loved more than anybody on earth held a gun to my head and threatened to kill me more times than I can even remember. I'm here to tell you the story of crazy love, a psychological trap disguised as love, one that millions of women and even a few men fall into every year. It may even be your story. I don't look like a typical domestic violence survivor. I have a BA in English from Harvard College, an MBA in marketing from Wharton Business School. I spent most of my career working for Fortune 500 companies, including Johnson & Johnson, Leo Burnett, and the Washington Post. I've been married for almost 20 years to my second husband, and we have 3 kids together. My dog is a black lab, and I drive a Honda Odyssey minivan. So my first message for you is that domestic violence happens to everyone. All races, all religions, all income and education levels. It's everywhere. And my second message is that everyone thinks domestic violence happens to women, that it's a women's issue. Not exactly. Over 85% of abusers are men. And domestic abuse happens only in intimate, interdependent, long-term relationships. In other words, in families. The last place we would want or expect to find violence, which is one reason domestic abuse is so confusing. I would have told you myself that I was the last person on earth who would stay with a man who beats me. But in fact, I was a very typical victim because of my age. I was 22. And in the United States, women ages 16 to 24 are 3 times as likely to be domestic violence victims as women of other ages. And over 500 women and girls this age are killed every year by abusive partners, boyfriends and husbands in the United States. I was also a very typical victim because I knew nothing about domestic violence, its warning signs or its patterns. I met Connor on a cold, rainy January night. He sat next to me on the New York City subway, and he started chatting me up. He told me 2 things. One was that he too had just graduated from an Ivy League school, and that he worked at a very impressive Wall Street bank. But what made the biggest impression on me that first meeting was that he was smart and funny. And he looked like a farm boy. He had these big cheeks, these big apple cheeks, and this wheat blonde hair, and he seemed so sweet. One of the smartest things Connor did from the very beginning was to create the illusion that I was the dominant partner in the relationship. He did this, especially at the beginning, by idolizing me. We started dating, and he loved everything about me. That I was smart, that I'd gone to Harvard, that I was passionate about helping teenage girls and my job. He wanted to know everything about my family and my childhood, my hopes and dreams. Connor believed in me as a writer and a woman in a way that no one else ever had. And he also created a magical atmosphere of trust between us by confessing his secret, which was that as a very young boy, starting at age 4, he had been savagely and repeatedly physically abused by his stepfather. And the abuse had gotten so bad that he had had to drop out of school in 8th grade, even though he was very smart. And he'd spent almost 20 years rebuilding his life, which is why that Ivy League degree and the Wall Street job and his bright, shiny future meant so much to him. If you had told me that this smart, funny, sensitive man who adored me would one day dictate whether or not I wore makeup, how short my skirts were, where I lived, what jobs I took, who my friends were, and where I spent Christmas, I would have laughed at you. Because there was not a hint of violence or control or anger in Connor at the beginning. I didn't know that the first stage in any domestic violence relationship is to seduce and charm the victim. I also didn't know that the second step is to isolate the victim. Now, Connor did not come home one day and announce, hey, all this Romeo and Juliet stuff has been great, but I need to move into the next phase where I isolate you and I abuse you. So I need to get you out of this apartment where the neighbors can hear you scream, and out of this city where you have friends and family and coworkers who can see the bruises. Instead, Connor came home one Friday evening, and he told me that he had quit his job that day, his dream job. And he said that he had quit his job because of me, because I had made him feel so safe and loved that he didn't need to prove himself on Wall Street anymore. And he just wanted to get out of the city and away from his abusive, dysfunctional family and move to a tiny town in New England where he could start his life over with me by his side. Now, the last thing I wanted to do was leave New York and my dream job. But I thought you made sacrifices for your soulmate. So I agreed, and I quit my job, and Connor and I left Manhattan together. I had no idea I was falling into crazy love, that I was walking headfirst into a carefully laid physical, financial, and psychological trap. The next step in the domestic violence pattern is to introduce the threat of violence and see how she reacts. And here's where those guns come in. As soon as we moved to New England, you know that place where Connor was supposed to feel so safe? He bought 3 guns. He kept one in the glove compartment of our car. He kept one under the pillows on our bed, and the 3rd one he kept in his pocket at all times. And he said that he needed those guns because of the trauma he'd experienced as a young boy. He needed them to feel protected. But those guns were really a message for me. And even though he hadn't raised a hand to me, my life was already in grave danger every minute of every day. Connor first physically attacked me 5 days before our wedding. It was 7 a.m. I still had on my nightgown. I was working on my computer trying to finish a freelance writing assignment, and I got frustrated. And Connor used my anger as an excuse to put both of his hands around my neck and to squeeze so tightly that I could not breathe or scream. And he used the chokehold to hit my head repeatedly against the wall. 5 days later, the 10 bruises on my neck had just faded, and I put on my mother's wedding dress, and I married him. Despite what had happened, I was sure we were going to live happily ever after, because I loved him, and he loved me so much. And he was very, very sorry. He had just been really stressed out by the wedding and by becoming a family with me. It was an isolated incident, and he was never going to hurt me again. It happened twice more on the honeymoon. The first time, I was driving to find a secret beach, and I got lost. And he punched me in the side of my head so hard that the other side of my head repeatedly hit the driver's side window. And then a few days later, driving home from our honeymoon, he got frustrated by traffic, and he threw a cold Big Mac in my face. Connor proceeded to beat me once or twice a week for the next 2.5 years of our marriage. I was mistaken in thinking that I was unique and alone in this situation. 1 in 3 American women experiences domestic violence or stalking at some point in her life. And the CDC reports that 15 million children are abused every year. 15 million. So actually, I was in very good company. Back to my question. Why did I stay? The answer is easy. I didn't know he was abusing me. Even though he held those loaded guns to my head, pushed me downstairs, threatened to kill our dog, pulled the key out of the car ignition as I drove down the highway, poured coffee grinds on my head as I dressed for a job interview. I never once thought of myself as a battered wife. Instead, I was a very strong woman in love with a deeply troubled man, and I was the only person on earth who could help Connor face his demons. The other question everybody asks is, why doesn't she just leave? Why didn't I walk out? I could have left any time. To me, this is the saddest and most painful question that people ask, because we victims know something you usually don't. It's incredibly dangerous to leave an abuser, because the final step in the domestic violence pattern is kill her. Over 70% of domestic violence murders happen after the victim has ended the relationship, after she's gotten out, because then the abuser has nothing left to lose. Other outcomes include long-term stalking, even after the abuser remarries, denial of financial resources, and manipulation of the family court system to terrify the victim and her children, who are regularly forced by family court judges to spend unsupervised time with the man who beat their mother. And still we ask, why doesn't she just leave? I was able to leave because of one final sadistic beating that broke through my denial. I realized that the man who I loved so much was going to kill me if I let him. So I broke the silence. I told everyone. the police, my neighbors, my friends and family, total strangers. And I'm here today because you all helped me. We tend to stereotype victims as grisly headlines, self-destructive women, damaged goods. The question, why does she stay, is code for some people for it's her fault for staying. As if victims intentionally choose to fall in love with men intent upon destroying us. But since publishing Crazy Love, I have heard hundreds of stories from men and women who also got out, who learned an invaluable life lesson from what happened, and who rebuilt lives, joyous, happy lives, as employees, wives, and mothers, lives completely free of violence. Like me, because it turns out that I'm actually a very typical domestic violence victim and a typical domestic violence survivor. I remarried a kind and gentle man. We have those 3 kids. I have that black lab, and I have that minivan. What I will never have again, ever, is a loaded gun held to my head by someone who says that he loves me. Now, right now, maybe you're thinking, wow, this is fascinating. Or, wow, how stupid was she? But this whole time, I've actually been talking about you. I promise you, there are several people listening to me right now who are currently being abused, or who were abused as children, or who are abusers themselves. Abuse could be affecting your daughter, your sister, your best friend right now. I was able to end my own crazy love story by breaking the silence. I'm still breaking the silence today. It's my way of helping other victims. And it's my final request of you. Talk about what you heard here. Abuse thrives only in silence. You have the power to end domestic violence simply by shining a spotlight on it. We victims need everyone. We need every one of you to understand the secrets of domestic violence. Show abuse the light of day by talking about it with your children, your coworkers, your friends and family. Recast survivors as wonderful, lovable people with full futures. Recognize the early signs of violence and conscientiously intervene, de-escalate it, show victims a safe way out. Together, we can make our beds, our dinner tables, and our families the safe and peaceful oases they should be. Thank you.
Oh, wow. She basically spoke my story because I had a husband who's like that. His name was, I'm not going to say his name actually because I wanted to protect him because we had children together. And I'm not going to do that. But my story was similar to that. And he would beat me all the time. He broke bones. Everything was my fault. And I was in my 20s when I married him. Didn't know anything about it. Everything she said is like basically the same thing. I married the man that was beating me like it was nothing because I thought that only I knew the kind of person it took to love somebody like him. I know that sounds kind of stupid, but I know there's people out there that did the same exact thing I'm doing. I can tell you this though. Once I got out of the relationship, I became a stronger person. I mean, I tried the love thing again and again and again. I got remarried again and divorced again. But I yet to this day have not really found anyone that I could say I honestly truly loved with trust. Because the trust issue with me is very hard. But I do trust everybody the first time I meet them. That makes sense. I give everybody their one shot. And then I give them the rope to hang themselves if they're going to hurt me. And I know that sounds morbid. But I've lost more of my friends to domestic too. I had a lot of homeless camps I would go to where I'd watch the domestic abuse, try to talk them into stopping hurting each other. I mean, I've just seen it all. I'm one of the street knowledgeable people that I can say I've lived it, learned it, and lived without it now. That's why the way I feel about my life right now and being sick is very hard for me to think of me not being able to say this to people anymore. So I'm going to get these things out before or if anything ever happens to me because I'm sick. And I just want these topics to be addressed. And I read this woman's book a long time ago. It's called Crazy Love. And it's saved me. I actually read the book while I was being abused by this man. It gave me the courage to leave him. When she went and did this speech on a stage, I had to play it. I have to play it for y'all. She's amazing. She is all about the cause. There's too many people dying out there senselessly. It's senseless. Love's not supposed to hurt. Not like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. And I'm going to do a few fun little statistics about it. They're not fun statistics, but what I'm saying is I'm going to put some statistics at the end of this so that you guys can hear just how bad the statistics are. And that'll answer some questions on why people don't leave relationships that they're in. Because it's easy for people to say, oh, you need to just leave them, like I said. And like she said, one person that abuses you can kill you right after you leave them. It's 70 percentile. Whenever you see a purple ribbon, and I know a lot of people are about tired of them purple ribbons, I know that. But once you see the purple ribbons, the ribbon for purple is for domestic abuse awareness. It's for the people that have died. So I'm hoping that this gets to some people. I'm going to go ahead and let these be read out, and then I'm going to end this message for y'all. I just wanted y'all to know that I wanted to address a few of these things before I get too sick to do it. So here is the sad statistics. Okay, hold on one second. Hello, Nashville. We're going to talk on a topic now. We're going to start on a topic that I find very, very important. And that's going to be domestic abuse awareness. The statistics on this cause is something I'm very, very, very open about because I was an abused woman. I served enough time in abusive relationships to know my shit. And I've watched some of my friends die from it. I'm going to read you some facts about it right now. Number one, since the pandemic, it has increased more in men, deaths of men, abuse of men, because there's 4 types of abuse. You have mental, physical, verbal, financial. Those types of abuse are all abuse. Then you have child abuse, which is another whole bracket in my opinion, but it's the same cause, so you need to be aware. You need to tell people when somebody's abusing you. He's not some kind of magic man. You gotta seriously take care of, or a magic woman that doesn't need your money. This is a real thing. 1 in 4 females and 1 in 10 men have never experienced abuse when they start getting abused for the first time. They don't realize they're being abused. Every year, 500,000 women and men get raped or assaulted. 1 out of every 10 are men. People at all income levels can experience this abuse. Any children who witness this form of abuse, range from 2 to 5 years old, will usually be met and adjusted in their brains to most likely become an abusee or an abuser. 1 out of 3 in male or female genders experience stalking. Male victims reoccurs and increased during the pandemic this year by 10%. The pandemic has increased the death toll as well by 17%. After your partner gets a hold of you, this is how the abuse starts. It's a cycle. Number 1, he'll charm you, he'll court you, or she. They say it on both sides. They'll make you feel dominant, like you're the most important person in the relationship. They'll make you feel loved. They'll make you feel pretty. They'll make you feel like you're the most important thing you've ever been around. And you become confident with these people. And they usually come with a soft disposition, like you need to feel sorry for them and they would never hurt a fly. The second step of an abuser is when they can isolate you. They take you away from what you know, your family, your friends, and they bring you somewhere where you have no family and friends, so nobody's going to report it. Nobody's going to say anything because there's nobody there to protect you. Number 3, they test the water. They start to scare you with things like buying weapons, threatening you, but they don't actually physically touch you yet. Number 4 is called the buildup of tension. It's where they do strike you for the first time, and it's like a drug to them. They have to keep doing it. It's a cycle. After they hit you, after they hurt you, they have a honeymoon phase where it's really good sex, really good love, really good everything, and then they go right back to it. It happens in cycles like depression. Number 5, they make a plan. They make a plan to kill you, and usually it happens after you leave. And if they isolate you away from people that you can love and talk to, then they can usually, number 6, carry out the plan. They have nothing left to lose. They're so infatuated with what you are to them, and they do not want you with anybody else, so they'd rather kill you first. And they do. And it usually ends in murder-suicide. Most of the statistics on the world of American people, I don't have statistics. These statistics are mainly for the USA, but there are statistics worldwide, and the worldwide statistics are even worse. But domestic violence is treated differently in different places. Different countries have different laws. I just wanted to give all the people out there that are being abused right now the option to get out. Tell somebody. Talk to somebody. You do not have to stay. I do understand how hard it is to leave them, because if you have nobody and you think that there's nobody that will help you, you're wrong. I'm getting sicker, but if I wasn't so sick, I was one of those people. But I still can bring the cause out. So I'm going to air this out for you guys so y'all can understand the importance of knowing about domestic violence abuse. Awareness. Be strong. You can change your life because Miss Biscuit said so.